Um, for the past few years, I've been shooting heavily on something called low-key photography. Okay, low-key photography is where you have very moody shots. Okay, for example, you have seen that image of the cream being poured and then it's just about to touch the cake and it hasn't just touched the cake, right? So what does that do to your image? It creates an interesting narrative with your viewer. Anticipation. Whoa, look at that drop. It's going to fall. I told you, right? The image has to make the viewer look drool over it, right? The image has to make that person feel weak in the knees. That is our purpose behind doing food photography. Because your food, the image of your food will sell your food. No matter how good your food is, if you don't showcase it properly, it will not sell. Trust me. Okay. So backdrops are very important. How you hide the backdrop smartly, right? So here I have quickly created a small scene for you guys. I use a lot of wild flowers in my compositions. Okay. Because they are not pretty like roses. They're not pretty like manicured flowers. They are rustic. They're wild. Like full of force. That's why I use a lot of wild flowers, unfinished things into my compositions, which give a nice character. And all these are supporting actors. Your props, your flowers. It could be a jar, it could be a jug, it could be any of these things. They lift the main element. So always make sure that you do not overshadow the main element. So I will intentionally use things that will create this geometry again and again in my composition. Okay, so you have to be in a way very cunning, when you are setting up your shot, when you are bringing your elements in. Okay, so you have to see what is cohesive. There has to be something called a harmony. Harmony between the elements, harmony between the colors. These are the two things which are very, very, very essential. More important from the perspective of the photo itself. The camera, the light come later. Because when you are setting up the scene, it is the first time you are looking at it. Right? And we will also go into what are the angles that you put your camera on. How many of you have DSLRs? Okay. Okay. How many of you have cell phones? Two. You have two phones.
Yeah.
So cell phones are some of the most powerful tools for food photography. I'll show you a simple contraption that you can get it for yourself on Amazon. Yeah, the thing about food photography is you need the minute you crack an angle, you have to freeze that angle. Because if I move my hands and then try to get back to the same angle, there might be a deviation of about 4 degrees, 5 degrees, 10 degrees and all that. That makes a lot of difference. Okay. So to a subject, there's so many angles that you could be taking. Right? Not to forget the direction of light. That's a huge component in photography, especially food photography, when you want to create drama in your food. Okay. So composition, like I was saying, your plating. How are you composing your shot? Now, there is a very powerful approach towards composition. You as bakers, when you are creating something, you are always creating with a visual in your mind. How many of you disagree with this? None of you disagree. I guess my wife is not here because she normally likes disagreements. Okay, so you work towards the visual. It's there in your mind. So this is called pre-visualization. That means you sit with your muffins, you see what the color of the muffins is. How did you do the piping? Okay, is this still sitting in the butter paper or not? Have we taken it out? So you analyze this part, right? So when you see the muffin, you have to see the image in your mind. This is image building. If you need additional support, what you do is you take a piece of paper, a pencil, and then this is called mood boarding. You mood board your scene, saying that I will have 2 muffins in my shot. One muffin will be really close to the camera. One muffin will be lingering around somewhere over there. And between the muffins, I will put a whisk. I'll put a nice ribbon traveling through the gap between these two. Now you are building an image in your mind, right? Once you build the image, it is easy to go towards that. Okay? Sometimes what happens is when you are not, some of my brilliant shots, I didn't even plan them. They just happen. So there are 2 approaches. The image comes to you, that is one approach. Or you go to the image, that's the second. Okay? Which one do you favor? You favor both. You favor both because you get outputs from both the sides. Okay? When you are going only this way, saying that, oh, the image will just come to me, and you might get a comment saying that, why aren't you updating your images? Okay, so it is important for you to use both the methods. Okay? Light. Again, a huge ocean of topic. So I'll try to compact it to you, the size of probably a small tumbler for you. Best light. So when you want to create mood, when you want to create drama, when you want to create like high key, moody shots, your light should be from the side. Now, when you are setting up your shot next to a window, make sure the window is getting facing and the not facing windows give brilliant light. What happens when you are using east facing and west facing windows is that you get very harsh direct light. Right? Probably it is nice if you are creating a breakfast scene and you want to create shafts of light coming onto your food. Okay? And based on what kind of elements I use, sitting in Hyderabad, I can make it feel like you have shot this in Venice or Madrid. Okay. Just by the props that you have used. Okay. Photography, someone said it's all about fooling the viewer. Yes? You agree? You should see my photograph in my album. So this, since I don't have a window, normally the size of your illumination panel, okay, the light panel, should be larger than your foot source. Your foot. Okay. Why? Because the larger the size, the softer the shadows. Okay. So how you do this is you push the table away or closer to the window and see what kind of shadows you are ending up getting. Okay. And it's all about training your eye. This is an artificial source of light. It's about 45 degrees angle to the light source. It's a relatively large octa. It's about 120, this is called the 120 octa. Since I don't have a window over here, this is creating the sense of a window light. Okay. But anyway, I would still use a lot of window light in my composition. Very nice and crisp. So that is your aspects of light, arrangements of prop. Okay, you never know what kind of. So there are basically certain angles in which you shoot the foot. Your conventional method is 45 degrees. That is because that is the angle at which you put the foot in front of you on the table and see it and eat. So it gives a very natural view of angle, it is called. Okay. Sorry, angle of these, which is top down, they're called flat lays. They are slightly difficult to manage because of the spaces. Spaces get exaggerated when you are arranging food. You know, so between the eggs and the cake and the bisque and the, you know, whatever. So till about sourdough, but then these things will make it look even more powerful. Remember, Shah Rukh Khan and supporting actors. So always identify. So textures are very important. When you want to bring out the texture, where you feel that you can touch the cake, or you can touch the drizzle of the sugar, okay, or you can touch the pouring of the cream, okay, side like that. Okay. Colors are very important in your imagery. Okay, you use only complementary colors. I cannot use yellow, green, blue, pink, violet, all the Asian colors. Why? Simply because there is no harmony between these colors. Okay? So, me when I shoot, normally I do not use more than 3 colors in my combination. So, when you are mood boarding for your image, when you are pre-visualizing, I'm going to have this cake in these colors. So, what will be the color of the napkin? What will be the color of the props? Okay. This unicity you have to maintain. If you have more than 3 colors, 4 colors, outer limit is 4 colors. Sometimes I use just 1 color. It's all pink. The background is pink, the cupcake is pink, the frosting is pink, but in different shades of pink. So what happens is there is something called separation, and separating all the pinks out, and then it still makes a very interesting visual. Okay. So arrangement. For example, you see this. This is not a calibrated monitor or projector. This will not give you the true colors that you see on the Mac. If you want to see the real punch in the images, probably you can find me. Try resist this. Try dot resist this. Resist dot this on Facebook, and you will see the true colors because they are calibrated on the Mac and then uploaded on the. So, how many colors do you see in this? 3? Yeah. 4? Yeah. Okay. 4. Browns, greens, whites, and reds. That's it. And they are all from the same color palette. It means they are complementary colors. They complement each other. They do not fight for attention. Okay. Look at the arrangement. It's a triangle. Then again another triangle inside. Right? The flower is sprinkled around to make it look like very celestial, very astral. Right? Look at the way the carton of the cake base is turning. It's like a crescent, right? So these things are not innocent. They are planned. How much of the flower will I sprinkle? In what direction? What direction will I light my subject? What will be my base? What will be my base colors? And you never know where your backdrop might be sitting. Okay. Please don't tell me tell this to my clients, but I reshot this on the floor. Of course, we cleaned it properly. But then it's very interesting to see, for example, I would love to shoot against this background. The way you can control the light falling onto the background and then your foot. Interesting combination of colors and textures. Then you have types of photography. Oh, now I'm on the mic. Okay. Types of photography. Now, why do we talk about types of photography? Is the purpose. Are you shooting for Nestle to be put on an ad? Are you shooting for Creamstone? to be displayed in their outlets? Or are you shooting for your Facebook page, website? Okay. So are you creating an editorial? So these are the different purposes of the food destination. Where is it going, the image? Okay. Accordingly you plan. Okay. So you have photography, food photography for packaging, advertising, editorial, that means your magazines and ads and things like that. Then shooting for social media. When you are shooting for social media, please pay attention to the aspect ratio it asks you. Insta 1:1 square. Okay. So when you are shooting with your phone or with your camera, go into the aspect ratio. Every 500 people, they can't come and taste your food every time. So it is the best way to showcase your items. Most versatile promotional tool, because it's the image that is going to pull the person towards you. Okay. The number of times my bakers, and I work with a lot of bakers in Hyderabad. Okay, small scale to large scale, everyone. The number of times I received calls saying that now my handle is something else because of the visual content you will have on your Facebook, Insta, website. My humble suggestion to you is throw out all the useless images of your Facebook. Have a unified identity. Don't put a photo of paneer butter masala, a dog, Golconda, your cousin's wedding photos, yeah, and then your recent trip to the zoo. So, are you getting what I'm saying? It confuses your mind. Throw out all the junk out of your face. Have a very unilateral identity. I do only baking. Okay. Impresses your clients. Obviously, if your client is impressed, your sales get boosted. Yeah, so you can use your good images for creating a visual book. These things are called lookbooks. Okay, lookbooks. What they do is when a client comes to your place to place an order, they give you a first hand. For example, I am coming to you. Okay, you are asking me to wait for 20 minutes. Taught to think. As adults, we forgot to think. We follow the rules. Okay. So when you are looking at your scene, you have to think, where is my light, where is my shadow? Do I need to fill my shadows? Okay. So when you take this and then when you flush light back into the scene, this is called filling the shadows. Okay. So filling the shadows is very, very important. But when you are trying to create drama and mood, okay, you can call me. Yeah, my wife has been telling me that ever since I started food photography, I put on a lot of things. Because the clients are so, always genuine. Yeah, like she said, Homebakers, that's it. Yeah, go to the nearest. Yeah. So, just as you have aluminum foil that gives a very specular reflection. So don't go with specular reflection if you do not know what it does to your food. Yeah, there you go. White chili, white thermocol, white anything. White plate also. Okay. As long as you are pushing light back. So there is, depending on the intensity of the light, various contrast ratio varies between 1:8 or 1:16. Okay. That creates drama. Yeah, please.
Now, not for everybody. Yeah. So if it's a 30-inch cake, 35-inch tall cake, then how do you manage the backdrop?
Yeah. So basically, I told you, right, you analyze very cunningly the geometry, the height, the proportion of the props that you will be using, and therefore the size of what is blocking the background. We do not want the fridge in the background. Fridge ke baaju one tricycle. Next to the tricycle there is a mop. Next to the mop there is a washing machine. You don't want to show all that, right? So I'm coming to your point. So your backdrop has to be proportional to the size of your food. Okay? If it is a 35-inch or 36-inch tea or cake, okay, my backdrop has to be at least 48 inches. Okay? How you do this is very, very, very simple.
Volume.
We've got it.
So,
See, all
the
the
simple
time
way
you
out
can't
is,
use the same wall, right? You want a different backdrop all the time, and backdrops are pretty expensive.
yeah.
So what is the
So,
solution to
no,
it?
you make your own backdrop.
How do you make your own backdrop?
Then you have to attend my workshop.
Okay, done.
No, I'm just kidding. But you can use wooden
Handmade
panels to cloth to canvas. There's so many varieties that you can use. You can use wood panels. Yeah. So be on the lookout around you. Like, what can I pick up? Sometimes I went to Creamstone recently. I saw a nicely placed, they're ready to dispose the pine wood. You have to be shameless. I went to the manager and I said, I want that. And I was taken aback. We are going to throw that. I said, I want it. So,
But for all your photo shoots, you must be having an assistant, right? The bakers don't have assistants. They do everything on their own. So they can't be holding the backdrop and taking the picture.
you know who my assistants are? My wife, my sister-in-law, my friends, who are easy prey to, like when I say I need that, please come. Sometimes even my clients
I've
assist
started
me.
to consider you as my friend now.
No, I'll be happy to collaborate with you. I'll be happy to help you guys. As long as your food is good, that is very important for me. If your food is not good, I'm not going to shoot it because I will not feel happy about it, right? So I look for the form, the texture, the taste, everything. It has to be inspiring. I'm sure you all are like great cooks and bakers. 1 minute, my last minute. Yeah, one question.
Say like most of us we don't have like DSLRs, and for shots like especially the powdered sugar or the caramel, we can't shoot in say the automatic mode. We need like a manual mode, which is not available.
You mean this one?
Yes, this one. So we have
Yeah, this you need a stroboscopic lens.
yeah. So
You have to sync it to like 120 and 1/200th of a second and then.
So we have to like we have to adjust the shutter speed and everything, which we cannot do on a cell phone.
Cell phone.
So what I'd like to ask is which camera would you recommend for
You
us
still
to
stick to
use?
your cell phone. You download an app on your cell phone.
What apps would like to share? Come on.
Okay, so.
Come on, let us finish. No workshop.
Wait. I'm trying to recollect the name. Just after the workshop, I'll show it to you on my phone.
Yeah. Also, you were mentioning something on Amazon that we can.
Yeah. So, that sells for about 90 rupees, 100 rupees.
What's it called?
It's a cell phone holder. Okay. But you have to invest on this. $1,000, $2,000. You get a tripod. Tripod stand, and then this goes under the base plate. Base plate goes under this, and then you put it onto your wrist. So what happens is you are assured of your angle. Okay. So with that, we end our session. If you have any queries, please feel free to reach out to me. I'll give it to you. I hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.
Prashant, thank you.
Thank you.
The crowd doesn't want to let you go, but unfortunately we've just run more than enough, more than enough. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Um,
So I have set this up for you guys, right? So yeah, I mean whenever you have time, I'll be here. Yeah, after the talk session and all that. Please bring your cell phone. I'll show you what settings will give you that magic.